Welcome back to the LCS Lounge. This is LCS Waiting Room. We are down to one sheet worth of playoff possibilities. We will have anywhere from 0 to 5 tiebreaker games at the end of the day. So that is 10 to 5 games today as our total range.
All today.
There's two scenarios with 0, just one with 5, I think.
Yeah. There's the 5 one requires, let's see. It is CLG wins, Fly wins, TL wins, GG wins, 100 Thieves win.
Actually, kind of possible.
It's like not the most ridiculous.
It's not a ridiculous scenario,
The first one is the least likely. Let's pull up the standings to see where everybody is. Cloud9 with a win in the first game, locks first, and would also lock FlyQuest into second. EG, though, has been stumbling up a storm, could actually lose their number 3 seed today. 100 Thieves, who we didn't know if they'd be in playoffs when they were 5 and 8, could actually be in the upper bracket of playoffs. So could CLG, so could Golden Guardians, and TSM still in the hunt.
I put 100 Thieves third in my beginning of split rankings. It's alive! I'm livid! It could happen.
CLG could also be third.
Still.
It's possible.
That's true. That's true. Man,
goodness.
that has been a slip from, a few teams, EG, Golden Guardians. But meanwhile, the wave of 100 Thieves,
It's
that 4-game winning streak, just
feeling
moving
good
to the top.
Yeah, we will have one more team eliminated today, basically.
Yeah.
7 teams are still alive. TSM would be the most likely if they lose to FlyQuest. But yesterday, because of Team Liquid's loss to CLG, they will no longer be going to next week. They'll have one final game against EG to try and be spoiler, but it's time, Emily.
Yeah.
We have to say goodbye to Team Liquid.
Pour one out for Team Liquid.
The most appropriate name for this segment for a team, Team Liquid.
Oh, yeah, true, actually.
Oh, good call.
As you can see, we're here at the horse pasture. Team Liquid, I really actually liked
There's
your
no
roster
horses.
construction, you know?
They're all dead.
I actually honestly thought this roster was going to do really well. You could see flashes of brilliance. When I close my eyes, I can still see Pioshix, Vi, and Summit Sion as the sweetest of dreams and the worst of nightmares. I legitimately had so much fun watching UTL. Pour one out. Felt like I was gonna miss the thing. Hopefully you stick with this roster because I do want to see you reach your true potential this summer.
The whole thing?
I don't know.
That's how you pour one out.
Yeah.
I guess.
I don't know. I only pour a little out for my friends.
Oh, really?
They only get a couple drops.
Same.
Wow.
I'm not a good friend. That's why.
That's how much I love TL.
I will say, I do agree that they were the most interesting team to watch this year in terms of just like any game was a banger because they would get huge leads and throw them. They would stomp early games. They would make comebacks sometimes. They were always
When you
crazy.
mentioned like Summit and Pioshix, I just imagined all of Summit's Sion ultimates just like flying anything useful.
That's why I said it's the sweetest of dreams or the worst of nightmares because it could go either way. Sometimes when they would get a really good team fight, it'd be like, oh, that's what this team's capable of. And then other times, it's not. It was not it.
I think it's actually worthy of a bit of conversation for Team Liquid just because we didn't get a big chance to discuss it yesterday. I mean, I've seen some discourse on Twitter about it as well. Like, do we think Team Liquid will make a change? And if they do, kind of where would they do it? Because the most disappointing change, at least this is the sentiment I was reading on Twitter and I think I agree with, would be to just like change out the rookies.
I agree with that.
Right? Because they were not in what I would consider a stable environment. The biggest comparison I saw was to EG, where like Impact was a very stable player. Inspired and Vulcan played very well around JoJo and Danny, but for Harry and Jan, you literally from game to game would have no idea what your top and jungle is going to do. They'll either be like MVP world champion or they'll literally be like the worst 2 players in the game. And you could never know.
Yeah, it's weird. The team also is kind of like that in terms of its construction where like it is I assume, relatively expensive roster with a lot of veterans on it. Yes, you have the rookies. And it's like pitched kind of though as a summer team. I think the whole time they're talking about like they want to outwork people. You have 2 rookies. You think that you're not going to peak in spring. But is this like an acceptable level to be at the end of spring, 7th and out of playoffs? I think that's below their own goals.
8th.
Or 8th, excuse me. You're right. So like even though they're talking about we're a summer team, that doesn't mean that this was an acceptable level for spring either.
And I'm not sure how much to take from interviews, but from the interview we did with Core on the first day of this week, so Wednesday, he did talk about how he's like, I do hope that we can reach our full potential and make it into playoffs, but if we can't, like, there's still so much more we can do as a team, which if you're reading the tea leaves from that, makes me think they'll stick with this roster. Who knows, obviously, because that could mean nothing. But I also do think it's interesting to look at in the stability and the most stabilizing force on this roster, I do think is Core. And I know I keep harping on the Engage versus Enchanter supports. I do think he can dictate the pace of their team fights so much better with Engage supports. And so maybe a meta shift would also help them.
Yeah, and I do like the overall league takeaway of you don't need to have everyone on your team speaking the same language for there to be a disconnect. So like,
or to avoid disconnects.
Exactly.
Oh,
To
they're all
avoid
Korean,
disconnect.
so why are they not coordinated?
Exactly. They were the picture perfect team of a team that like had a lot of communication, and not even just communication errors, like a vision of how to play fights. They were just completely misaligned. Whereas there were a lot of teams, the best example of it was actually Golden Guardians, a team that has like 3 people speaking in Korean while Licorice and Stixay are kind of trying to catch up. Like they still understand their roles. So you may not be able to understand what the play is or what people are communicating necessarily in voice comms, but you understand what your role is in a fight. So it's like you don't need to have everybody communicating on the same wavelength and all these things. Sure, it's a problem. You have to, like, in Golden Guardians, I'm sure, are thinking about, like, we need to be like communicating this properly. But, like, it is far more important for your players to know what they're doing and achieving in a team fight or an objective setup and all these things. So, like, know your role. You don't necessarily need to be able to communicate those things in the game. I think that was a big takeaway that we saw.
Yeah, and one thing I'll also, this is like a stat tidbit that I might have shared with you guys off camera. The last 3 LCS teams to win Summer Split made a substantial roster change between Spring and Summer. So last year, it would have been C9 adding Jensen and moving Fudge back to top lane. The year before that, it would have been 100 Thieves changing coaches to Reaper and adding Abadaga in the mid lane. And the year before that, it would have been the TSM team that added Doublelift. So while we think that it was pitched as a Summer Split team and they're going to be growing, there's going to be a huge itch to try and change something to get that 8th place taste away from Team Liquid. So we'll just have to see, because they're not usually a team to stay still. Pivoting the conversation, though, let's talk about MVP.
Let's do it.
Because this is something that we have touched on a little bit, but it feels really a strange time. This is alphabetical order.
There's a second screen coming as well, so this is not the only candidates, to be clear.
Because you
C9.
you can go to someone on the street or find an analyst, and they're going to make a case for any of these players. So Berserker, Blaber, Fudge, Inspired. Let's get to page 2 of our MVP candidates. Prince, River, Speak, Vulcan. Technically, for the ballot, any player would be available to submit. This is just our kind of rough best guess of players that might be submitted. And I think that's going to kick us off, because for me, it's been a really weird year. We haven't even really been thinking that much about MVP until last week.
Yeah, and I think if this is the cue for me.
This is the cue.
This is the cue. All right, we're going to do something a little different. It's something that is maybe going to come across a little weirdly on broadcast, but I think it's the actually easiest way, rather than going through like 50 full screens and trying to draw your eyes. We have an internal stats tool at Riot that we use, and I'm going to actually show that to you guys and help you walk through some of the things that make this such a weird split to talk about, because people have been talking about, is it Prince, is it Blaber? They've had 2 very different first halves of the year, and the Blaber one is one that interests me because I want to look at his historical splits where he's won MVP before. So this is the year 2020 up here. There's a couple filters you can see. 2020 LCS Jungle Spring, LCS Spring. And when you look at this is the first time he won MVP, he was by far the best jungler, and it's not even close. Kills and assists at 14 per game, 3.1. Next closest, Dardoch, almost a full kill average more every 14 minutes. He also dominated in terms of kills. When you look at the overall ranking for this, you know, next closest was like 30 behind him. The CSD lead, absolutely gigantic. Gold difference, absolutely gigantic. This was, I would argue, the greatest jungle season we have ever seen.
Well, wasn't this also the greatest LCS season we've seen? Like, this was the 17-1 C9 that, like, definitely looked like they were going to be under the whole time.
Because we didn't have MSI this year, that was like everyone was like, this is such a tragedy because this C9 team looks like they could make waves internationally. That's how dominant
Yeah,
they
those
were.
stats are insane.
Yeah, those stats are insane. So we're going to jump ahead 1 year when he won his second MVP. This one was also in spring of 2021. And you're going to see a very similar story in terms of like the level of dominance. Again, when you're looking at some of these important stats to me as a jungler, you know, how active are you in the early game? Again, leading the league by a pretty significant margin. Santorin's second closest, but 0.7 behind. Again, leading the league in kills. The next closest would be 54. Again, Santorin. High 4%, high CSDs. Leading the league basically in every category that you can think will matter for a jungler. The reason I bring this up is because recently Blaber has entered the MVP conversation for this year. So we're going to jump ahead to 2023. And it's just not the same level of dominance, which is why I think there's a disconnect between some people in the community of whether or not Blaber actually is the MVP this year or not. Because when you look at, that was KDA, I want to do kills and assists. When you look at it, he's
KDA
actually,
at 14 is actually pretty bad.
his kills and assists at 14 is you know, low. It's lowest in the league, surprisingly, for Blaber, who we see is consistently one of the highest. His CSD is #1, but we've all talked about how this is not really a farming meta for junglers. A lot of them are doing full clears into like chain ganking and things like that. And his gold difference is not as dominant. You know, he's still behind Spica a little bit in this. It's still very good. He's still leading the league in kills, showing that he is an insane team fighter, and it's not just about early game for Blaber. But I think this is where some of the disconnect come from. And to make it even more complicated, in case this wasn't enough for you, we can go ahead and actually add a filter to separate into different splits. So I'm actually going to start with the first half for Blaber. And it was even worse than this in a lot of ways. He was so inactive in the early games. 0.6 kills and assists per game. Less than half a kill and assist average in the first round robin. This is when they had Diplex in, remember. And Blaber loves playing around his mid jungle. Can't do that as easily with Diplex, who was usually behind in lane, not like getting smashed, but had no pressure. His farm was insane. So he was basically just full clearing the jungle, chain farming, which is not what the meta was. And it was just so weird to watch him do that. Again, still led the league in kills during that time period. So impressive.
And they were 7-2, so it was
they were winning, but it wasn't like this insane jungle performance that won him the MVPs in the past. However, and this is where it gets interesting, we jump ahead to once Emenes joins the team, and it is the Blaber of old, basically, coming back in during that time period. He jumps way up the standings in kills and assists at 14. He's still doing very good in farm, but during this time period, I do want to highlight Spica, even in the second round robin, while FlyQuest is stumbling, is still leading the league in kills and assists at 14. He still has more farm. Blaber has jumped ahead in overall gold difference, but here's the thing, guys, turrets. Global goal generation that comes from the fact that everyone is winning on Cloud9. They are smashing early games. A lot of this goal difference is coming from overall team dominance and not the individual CS or kills that he is generating for his team. So these are some of the areas that like I look at for Blaber and why it's such an interesting conversation, because it's the tale of two C9s. It's also the tale of just a very up and down season for multiple teams in the LCS.
I think it's also interesting to look at, and this is a discussion we've had off camera more than on, but it's interesting to look at contextually within a season, like you said, where jungle meta is a lot less farming and a lot more how much you communicate with your lanes. Where are you when, you know, we're stacking a wave, when we're setting up for an objective or to take a turret or whatever. And in that regard, I value Blaber's counter jungling and ability to farm very highly. But if you're looking at other junglers like Spica, like River, even like Contractz is super active early on the map, and I don't think he's part of the MVP conversation, but I think it's interesting to look at junglers within what is the jungle meta at this time. And this is a very long-winded way of saying that I think a bot laner should win MVP because it has primarily been a bot lane meta.
Yeah, and Mark, you're really good with the tool.
I'll stay up here, but you talk.
Continue the point here. Prince was the runaway MVP for probably 5 weeks. And FlyQuest has slumped. Prince had 2 very bad games, but these here are the bot lane stats for the whole split. So you can see Prince still 14 kills ahead of everybody else, but also if you go to the laning stats, CSD, gold difference, and forward percentage. So you're just going to show the gold difference. Prince is still the best laner, and that's playing with 2 different supports. And the forward percentage is the percentage of those first 14 minutes when you were beyond the halfway point in the lane. So he is not just like farming or denying waves. He's actually winning lane pretty substantially, as well as having the most kills. But here's the thing of like how dominant his first half was. So can you split to when he had, it's convenient. It's when he was playing with Winston, but it's more half the split versus half the split. The same thing we just did with Blaber. Look at how nuts this first half of the split was. 58 kills to 8 deaths, a 12 KDA, 488 gold difference at 14, and a 33% forward percentage. So if it's going to be an AD carry, my argument would be that it should be Prince. There's also going to be other people that say Berserker, probably. He's going to be the other one to take votes. Berserker's stats are way below. Berserker's eye test is really good. So if it's going to be an AD carry, I'd still think it's Prince, but it brings up the conversation of, is the first half less important or equally important to the second half?
I think it's equally important.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people will come in with recency bias, and this is what my case would be. I think people with the current losses that FlyQuest would be taking, and will judge him heavily for it. But I think Prince, for the first 6 weeks in my mind, has just been stellar. And for obviously to tumble a little bit later on, and it's more of the team failures, where it's like, okay, now people are going to move away from him. I think that's actually just really like short-sighted. And another thing too is on Cloud9, I think for Blaber, I give him a lot of credit because actually his role is pretty difficult in having multiple carry positions. I think C9's drafts a lot of times, at least in the early portions of the game, require him to visit a lot of lanes. There are multiple times in the early portions of the season where it's like, okay, Fudge actually needs a push out on top side, or he's in a bad spot. Blaber recognizes that and is there to help push him out. But with how lane experience actually hurts him doing that in comparison to the enemy jungler that's farming up. Or in the case with Diplex, like fixing a wave that is going to hurt your statistics, but it's actually good jungling. So I give a lot of credit to Blaber and Prince, and I wonder where the conversation is going to go for both.
Mark, do you have any Fudge stats you can pull up? I want to get Emily in, but Fudge is another one that I'm sure people are screaming from the rooftop.
I can hot swap to Fudge. I think this is why it's interesting for the C9 angle too, because it feels like there's multiple candidates on their teams, and sometimes that makes it actually harder to pick one. Because,
they're also going to split the vote, yeah.
I'm not hard arguing like it can't be Blaber, but I'm just showing why it's such a difficult conversation. Berserker stepping up in the second round robin. Fudge has, in my opinion, consistently been the best jungler, or excuse me, top laner in the LCS, but he hasn't actually been dominating like statistically. He doesn't make a great case because Summit just craps on everyone in the early game by a significant amount. It's more in the late game kills where you'll see Fudge like take over by a pretty significant amount, but like it's something where, yes, he has the biggest goal difference outside Fudge, Summit down here. But I would probably throw my personal weight behind Fudge if I was going to pick like a C9 delegate for the MVP vote. But I think there are a lot of candidates, and I think it is really difficult.
Yeah, I think it's difficult for not only a lot of like how close it is between players, but also to Raz's point, recency bias, because FlyQuest has fallen off compared to like their utter dominance of the first round robin.
Yeah.
Another point in favor of Prince that I did want to point out, which obviously isn't statistical, but goes with like the eye test thing, is he's been targeted a lot by other teams. Like as soon as they recognize like, okay, if we can keep this guy down, he does what, almost 40% of his team's damage. I think it's at 38%. Like we are going to just hard slam bot. We saw Pioshik do it, I believe, in one of their games. I also believe we saw River do it. But he has soaked up so much pressure for his team as well, and has still put out really like great numbers even in the second half. So I think that's something to also consider, is how much he's still doing for his team, even while having been hard targeted by FlyQuest opponents.
And one, I actually wanted to throw in one player as well.
Okay.
I'll find him. Who is it?
Who is it?
Sadly,
Is it
hurt by stats. Hurt by stats. Vulcan. Support statistically really difficult to track.
Support CSD. I'm walking away. I'm walking away from
Go
the
show the
leader. I'm not
CSD.
doing it. We're not pulling out support
CSD.
stats. I'm on the computer.
What if Vulcan has the highest CSD?
Yes,
I'm gonna go look. All right.
I'm
Let's
actually
make it a
super
meme.
curious.
Let's make it a meme. We'll make it a
Pull it
meme.
up.
Bring it up.
All right, let's go find support CSD. C9
Keep
started
doing
the
your point. Keep doing your
But yes,
point.
this is the one season where it feels like he is head and shoulders above the rest of supports right now, in large margin. Usually the conversation...
Oh, he's doomed.
Oh no!
Sorry, buddy.
Never mind, trash support. But like you look at the list. Zven is another one that comes to mind actually. So the conversation will be between Zven and Vulcan. But Vulcan has been insanely consistent alongside FBI. A lot of questions were going to be thrown towards EG's bot lane, because you throw in FBI, who had some criticism with FBI and Huhi when they were 100 Thieves. There's a question mark. Actually, just been stomping in lanes. They have been great in lanes throughout the split as a whole. So that, for me, I think maybe people will come in with recency bias against Evil Geniuses, but Vulcan as a support has been thriving.
Yeah, and it's, as you mentioned, so difficult to put EG in because of how bad they've been in the last week. And I do kind of want to go, like, we can all say that recency bias isn't going to be a thing for the voting, but you can also make a case that it should be a case for the voting, because I've been following maybe the most toxic MVP race in history, which is the NBA.
Yep.
And there are literally voters who are saying, like, past postseason performance is influencing who they're going to vote for MVP. So, like, I know we're saying it's a regular season award, but we have, what, like 40 different voters for MVP? It's all of the analysts, casters. It's one representative from teams, one representative from team players, one representative from team coaches, and then also third party. So everyone's going to have a slightly different criteria.
And a small thing as well, players will be, a lot of the times in the past, have been taking criteria from scrims.
Yeah, like how it feels against the player.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, we just took a very statistic-driven approach. There's also just your eye test. There's this kind of experience that players have. And to steel man the argument for Blaber and even recency bias, there's a belief that I have, which is you should be getting better over the course of a season, not worse. And like, yes, each game is equally weighted the same in my mind, but there is this feeling of like, okay, well, what happened to your team? You know, I don't know what's going on. And I can understand the argument for why, like, a game in week 9, not just because it's more recent in your memory, you remember that domination more, but like, you can argue it is in some sense a little bit more important because the stakes are higher. You know exactly where you are in the playoff hunt or something like that. And the pressure becomes more palpable then than in week 1 or week 2. And I can see that kind of being an argument for why recency does actually matter.
Yeah. Tiebreakers still do have an influence over the votes. I remember in past ones that happens. We only have one more game for each team, 17. So you'd think that our minds have been made up, but like,
doesn't POG count as well for?
Yeah. So the way the voting actually works is a player of the game award is the equivalent amount of points as one first place vote, which is 3 points.
Okay.
So if you've won a ton of POG, sometimes that can push you over.
We should make. I should pull up the POG leaderboard.
Yeah.
I should have asked for
I don't
one this
think we
morning.
prepped one.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
didn't.
Graphics, you know, don't feel like you can do it. Yeah.
Because I'm still working through it in my mind, because
I haven't decided yet either. I have no ballot filled out.
Because for me, there are literally 3 candidates from Cloud9. There's Fudge, Blaber, and Berserker.
Yep.
Berserker's stats aren't anywhere close, but like, it's really not all about stats.
He's really close to Prince too.
He's so good. He plays a variety of different styles. Talking to people about how good Berserker is, everyone says he's amazing. But then I look at the other side of like, okay, if you're not going to do a Cloud9 player, you usually look at who else has found a lot of success.
Yeah.
And that's FlyQuest.
Yep.
And for me, it's like, well, if it's just Prince, then like, how good was he? Does that not put him over the shared value of the Cloud9 players? But then you start adding in Spica, and things get very murky. So I'm actually, as much as I've been pushing Blaber propaganda, I am still actually undecided on my MVP.
This is the most exciting split in terms of just the MVP race and also the All-Pro race because of the inconsistency with a lot of the players throughout the split. And honestly, if Emenes had just been here from the start,
he's MVP. Maybe.
He's just MVP.
He'd be there too, yeah.
He is hands down the best mid laner in the time that he has been in the LCS. The question that fans and analysts and everyone voting has to answer is
9
half
games
the split.
enough?
Yeah, is that enough to knock out other people who have been here the whole time?
Yeah.
Well, and I remember in the past we had the same argument about Core because he came in, performed super well, but he'd had visa issues up to a point and was only here for half. And that was a big thing in, not MVP, but All-Pro voting.
Yeah, he ended up winning All-Pro that split.
Yeah, he played,
and a lot
played
of people
11
were,
games.
Played 11 of 18.
a lot of people were really mad about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say this. I think the way Raz framed it is the angle I hope people take it home, which is that this is an exciting race.
Yes.
It's fun to have these arguments and pull up the stats and go down the breakdown of who should win. I hope it doesn't turn into just like mudslinging controversy. You're a dumb. You picked the wrong.
Yeah.
You didn't pick my favorite player.
It's definitely going to be what you just said. But it is very interesting, and it's why we were able to spend basically the entire waiting room discussing MVP. Here's today's schedule. Just a quick refresher on the stakes. TSM is still alive. If they lose that second game to FlyQuest, they are out. If Cloud9 wins this game, they lock first. If CLG wins this first game, they still have a chance to move all the way up to third. So we're going to have a lot more figured out after the first 2 days of today's schedule. And we did a ton of talking about MVP. We had a ton of shots of Cloud9. But let's catch up, if you missed it, on what CLG has been up to this split up to this point.
Hello and welcome back to LCS Oversimplified. In an offseason full of roster changes, CLG were the only team to run back their full squad, and so far in 2023, things have been up and down. They started 2-0, went on a 4-game losing streak, then won 4 of the next 5. And to explain this phenomenon, CLG has abandoned all logic altogether in favor of so many superstitions we had to invent a convoluted flowchart to keep track of them all. But unfortunately, revealing their secrets seems to have jinxed them as the team went 1-3 in their week 6 and 7. this team is not afraid to put their mechanics to the test and go toe-to-toe against the top teams. While they've passed plenty of hand checks on picks like Dhokla's Aurelia, Palafox Aurelion Sol, Luger's Lucian, they haven't been able to put all this together and win those games consistently. But even if the going gets tough and Greg Kim fails the popcorn Diet Coke combo, CLG fans can rest easy knowing they can still make playoffs as Croissant is dripped out, Apollo and Demonte eat acai bowls, and Thick Card takes a mass before the game.
Wow.
It's simple.
Thanks for updating.
I heard they
us, Rez.
reversed all their superstitions, by the way.
Yeah.
Once
Yeah,
they went
okay,
OT,
good.
it's like we changed everything.
now we don't know them, so we
Totally
can't
outdated
curse them.
information. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if CLG win, they're in. If C9 win, they lock first. Also, if CLG win, we still have the incredibly chaotic 5 tiebreaker scenario.
Yeah.
Nice.
Is there a way we can zoom in on this
Yeah.
Colby sheet? I'll try and, or
Whichever-
mine or Emily's, whichever
Yeah.
one we can get a better
Whichever
shot.
one you want.
Yeah,
we
we're
can
going
take.
Emily.
Cover.
You're getting in there.
Okay.
No, it's not
don't
even
think I can
close.
read it.
No,
not even
that's
close.
illegible.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. It's what
We
I
tried.
will say is if C9 and FlyQuest win the first 2 games, we are getting anywhere from 2 to 0 tiebreakers. But if CLG wins the first game,
Yeah.
FlyQuest wins the second game, Team Liquid upsets EG, Golden Guardians wins, and 100 Thieves wins, we will be here for 10 games. Because that would put us into a tie for first between Fly and C9 and a 4-way tie for third between EG, CLG, Golden Guardians, and 100 Thieves.
I've done a 10-game day before. I'm ready again.
It happened
It
in
happened
the
once.
first weekend of franchising in 2018
That was the soup season.
in another very unpredictable MVP split where Aftermu ended up winning it after having an amazing run and finishing first.
Yeah. Crazy
Never know.
times.
Okay, predictions. What do we have? What do people think is going to happen today?
Oh, that means it's
All right.
not gonna happen. Wait, there's a TL and EG one.
Do you know how many tiebreakers yours
No, I'm
would
looking
do?
it up right now.
So the only difference of opinions is EG versus TL here.
Yeah. So the way I see it, and I said this yesterday at end of day when you and I were going through it, Rez,
Yeah.
is that TL now have the pressure off. And that combined with how poorly EG have been playing since they've had to play from home,
Yeah.
I feel like is the perfect stage for a TL upset in that. And then in that case, if it goes to chalk for my predictions, we get 2 tiebreakers because there will be a 3-way tie between EG, GG, and 100 Thieves for 3rd through 5th.
Yep.
And in that case, based on strength of victory score, according to our statisticians, EG would be the first seed in that bracket, and then Golden Guardians and 100 Thieves would play each other, and then the winner would play each other.
That's you and Jat. You guys are lame. Raz, me, and the
fans.
fan vote
Yeah.
only has 1 tiebreaker, actually, if you go for us. So
Yes, sir.
that's the home quick strat.
Okay, so
GG versus 100.
if you two are so good at predicting what the fans would say, who do you think the fans think the MVP is?
Oh, I think Blaber's actually the community favorite, but it's split. I'm always deep in Reddit threads. Someone was like, it should be Blaber, and the other person was like, you don't have eyes, and I was like, this is the conversation we're heading towards.
I think it's going to be Prince only because they'll probably come in with the idea of, sure, the point that you had made that teams usually don't get worse. Well, you come in with a roster change that I'm sure will change a dynamic within the team, and they legitimately got worse. And also, I will say, though, they saw it coming from their communication and talking about their scrims being poor and their stages.
They're
like,
trying to just
Yeah.
limit everyone's expectations the
yes,
whole time.
the entire time.
True.
Okay, C9 versus CLG, first game of the day. We got MVP considerations, we got playoff considerations. Let's get into the show.
here for Spring 2023 in the LCS. After today is done, we're going to know which 6 teams get to go forward and which 4 don't. We already know 3 of the ones that are not going forward, but there's still that last couple of spots ready to be fought for by a lot of these guys. The desk already told us there's tiebreaker potential all over the day. And starting off here, if CLG can upset this rampaging Cloud9, that's going to throw things into chaos. I'm CaptainFlowers, this is Kobe, and this is Game 1.
Yeah, there's a lot riding on this game, and I'm so excited because these 2 teams, I feel like in draft, are going to fight over early game right now. Cloud9 has been the scariest team in the early game and all game in the LCS, and CLG, I know that they have been the team that has jumped on Aurelion Sol and gone back to it over and over and over again for Palafox, but I think they throw that out the window here versus Cloud9. They don't want to leave that opening in the early stages, and so we're going to see a lot of focus on this bottom side of the map. Annie, Rakan, Heimerdinger, and Kalista, all bottom side bans.
Oh yeah, they're really looking at those 2v2s. They're in bottom lane. One more ban for either side. I'm with you, man. I think you just leave the Aurelion Sol up. You say, hey, if you want to take it, we'll kill your Nexus before 25 minutes. It's not a problem. Lee Sin, finally a non-bottom lane ban, but still a very early game, like pressure, power pick. Lee Sin getting everybody off and rolling. They don't want that coming out of Blaber.
What about Elise? The dangling Elise here, as far as tower dives, CLG just used this yesterday with the combination of the Jayce in mid lane for that early game jungle plus AD mid lane threat. And they're debating right now, do we give up the early game jungle playmaker? It's an option, Flowers. Elise is up for grabs.
Elise could be there. CLG, they like to be able to play it with those aggro AD solo lanes. It's one of the things that pretty much everybody likes to do, right? You mix and match the damage styles, get the ganks.
And they're a good team to actually utilize it since both of their solo lanes also play stuff like Yone. You know, this is one of the few teams where both solo laners, like assassin champions, like to play melees, like to split push. And they're going to save those in the Shroud of Darkness here for a while. Sejuani locked in first. This is one of the tools that CLG used at the beginning of the split to find their initial burst of success that got everybody hyped up at the beginning of the season with Contractz on the Sejuani. It has never been flexed over to Dhokla.
Right.
So as far as that goes, it's probably 100% jungle Sejuani and sets them up for those double melee solos.
Yeah, she's a champion that doesn't necessarily dominate the early game, but she's solid. She always knows exactly what her role is. She's a big meatball CC initiator, works in a ton of comps, so I'm fine with CLG starting off with that. Over on C9's side, it's Gragas' first pick. There is flexibility in that, as well as the Varus following it up on AD carry.
Yeah, Blaber is definitely one of the best, if not the best jungle Gragas in the LCS. Cloud9 were the originators of the Gragas Yasuo combo in years past at the origins of Blaber. Looks like it's going to be another emergence of Zeri. I know, not your favorite champion, but still has stood the test of time. Very powerful. They grab the pairing here. No brainer. Grab your Lulu along with it. You don't want to let that drop through the next phase of bans.
Yes, sir. They got to make sure they get the pairing there. Zeri is so much scarier when she's got an enchanter in her pocket, making her that much more easily capable of diving in and wrecking a whole team fight. Cloud9, though, they're going to lock in the Jayce. So Gragas, Jayce, and Varus, they don't have the support next to the AD. They're not worried about CLG's ability to pinch the support pool further. They obviously have some sort of a plan here for what they want to do.
Yeah, so I expect CLG to ban some engaged supports like Nautilus and stuff like that. Being the things that Zeri is worried about. If you have point and click ultimate on her for later, that gets annoying. If you can try and set up Gragas ganks plus, you know, Nautilus or Thresh setup, very dangerous. So CLG going to ban away some of those dangerous kill set up supports here from the side of Cloud9. Meanwhile, I have been very impressed with Emenes, watching his streams as well, solo queue, as well as when Champions Queue was up. It is no longer alive, but definitely he's definitely put a lot of different champions to very, very strong use. So we'll see him with the Jayce again. He plays it really aggressively.
And we have the Irelia and Yone both banned away. You talked about how CLG solo laners like to play these divers. They like to play these champions that are going to get in the mix of things, go after the back line. These AD solo lane melee pairings with the Sejuani. Irelia and Yone both out of the picture now. The Thresh you already mentioned was the first ban here in the second half for CLG, and it's K'Sante, the second ban from them in the second half of the draft. C9, what gets paired here with the Varus? Ashe and Varus together, very oppressive lane, tons of poke. They both have bow and arrows. There's synergy there, but that's going to be locked in, so that's what Zeri and Lulu will have to endure in the early game.
Yeah, support Ashe has gotten some slight nerfs here. Has been a little bit of trying to move power from support Ashe into AD carry Ashe. So technically, they could have Zven play either of these. They could switch it around if they wanted to, but I'm assuming like you, that is going to be the same old. Keep that one as support. Zven definitely, obviously, former AD carry experience, is really well positioned to play it, and they just lock in the Sion, the big beefy frontline CLG. It looks like in this critical game, they want a stable one. They actually want to rely on front-to-back team fighting. They've got Sejuani, Sion. All that now that they need is some AP carry scaling here for Palafox. Definitely are a lot of options open to him right now. I expect a ranged AP carry, but he could go for something more spicy. And there it is, the Taliyah locked in. When you have Sejuani come in, you can do an Arctic Assault flash, try and set them up for that seismic shove combination. Try and punish that Jayce before he really gets going.
Yeah, and you can see CLG with a lot of scaling. You already talked, traditional team fighting front-to-back stuff here. Taliyah is also going to help maybe get some plays going a little bit earlier to make sure they're not just at the mercy of C9 throughout the whole early and mid-game. The roams from the champion are very effective. Final pick of the draft for Cloud9 is the Cho'Gath. We are seeing Cho'Gath and Sion picked into one another. One giant ball of health versus another giant ball of health.
Yep, and they both do their jobs exceptionally well. So we'll see here. It looks like not too much craziness coming out here in our first game of the final day of LCS Spring Split. And it is a really important one. If Cloud9 win this game, they lock that first place. They lock in #1 in Spring. There are no strangers to being King of Spring, but if CLG are able to take this win, then they put the entire playoff race up in the air.
Yeah, it creates so much chaos if CLG wins this one. You have the potential of a Cloud9 and FlyQuest tiebreaker for first, potential for a 4-way tiebreaker later on. It could be madness, but we're going to find out as C9 and CLG go head-to-head. Split play in Spring 2023 here at the LCS. CLG tasked with taking out a Cloud9 that is 5-0 in their last 5 games and has absolutely roared to life at the end of the regular split play.
Yeah, and if you want to even go further than that, they've won 7 in a row. They're on a 7-game win streak here. Cloud9, the hottest team in the LCS, no question about it. But CLG, the chance start. They are at their best when you underestimate them, when they are the underdogs. And after a very disappointing last weekend when they lost a bunch of expected wins, they came up with 2 wins so far, creating their own momentum starting in Super Week.
Right.
With back-to-back wins thus far to get them to this position versus Cloud9. Looks like a defensive opening for both sides. And we get the recall and just a single sweeper on the field in the hands of Zven.
So we talk a lot about momentum going into playoffs, and specifically for a team like CLG, who has been around the middle of the pack, very close to that .500 win rate a lot of the time during the split. If you can end your regular split with a 3-0 Super Week, having that cherry on top be taking out the #1 team, that's great heading into the playoffs.
Certainly would be. Cloud9, here's that early ward here playing a little bit of dividends as they try and go for the double poke. I like that, where they have Berserker on the top side, Zven in the brush. 2 different angles here with the volley, with the arrow coming down from Varus as well. They don't actually land them, but they're trying to create that pincer sort of here with the double AD carry harassment. And also notice that Zven has gone for the ghost on the support.
Yeah.
He is going, full aggressive support mode here with the double mobility summoners. Ashe is one of the AD carries / supports that can best utilize this, paired with the extra inherent slow that you're going to be able to get as well. And Zven trying to get some harassment really early on here as he goes for the little Hail of Blades trade plus volley.
And that's the thing that I want to mention, because when you take the Ghost, you forego the barrier, which stops you from doing the level 1 YOLO, just run up and hit him with Hail of Blades, because you can trade for free with the barrier. He has to be a little bit more conservative with the health on that one to make sure he's not just yeeting away all of his health bar early on, so that they can continue this pressure as they have the poke and they have the range here with the 2 archers. You can see Contractz pathing up through the river, potentially looking towards the enemy jungle. Emenes gonna walk over, not see him as he does. Throws down a ward.
I think Contractz has a clear route here up to the double meatball lane. The tanks, the top laners, so used to being left alone.
And Contractz showing up. They're not expecting this. Fudge flashes away from the second part of the W, but I don't think it's gonna matter. They thought they were safe. Emenes' ward looked like it should have been able to see it, but the timing was perfect for CLG, and they get first blood.
El Contracto and Big Dokes combining for a first blood. Meanwhile, mid lane, Emenes gonna sidestep on that seismic shove, juking Palafox back just a little bit. But I really like the route, and you called out here for Contractz. Does his red quadrant, 3 camps straight into the long loop around to get behind the pushing Cho'Gath. Take out the flash of Cho'Gath as well, makes him so much more vulnerable. And even though it's not going to be solo kills all over the place in the top lane in tank v tank matchup, it could look like more drop CS. And Cho'Gath is this snowbally laner where if you do not have access to the minion waves, then you're going to lose out on a bunch of sustain from killing them, from getting those passives, heals, as well as mana back. And that's why the Cho'Gath buffs to mana costs were so big. And everyone, that was such a big deal because it did give him such an easier lane phase. Blaber coming in.
Palafox flashing out of the way. He was predicting the body slam flash from Blaber, wanted to dodge it, but now Contractz is here. Emenes is taken down, and Contractz is the better jungler again.
He's a killer Sejuani, Flowers. Get him off of those attack damage oriented champions. Get him onto the Sejuani. That's where the real Contractz is shining this year. My goodness, though, it was a nice play from Blaber. So when you're playing Gragas, it's always really fun to play the mind games with people. You just body slam at them and see if they flinch.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, they better flinch or they're going to lose, they're going to die because you flash your body slam onto them and you get the combo with the Jayce. And so Blaber holds his flash. He knows Palafox is going to flinch basically and use his own flash. And we'll see it coming around here. Because the threat, of course, if that body slam, if Blaber ends up getting the distance to be able to body slam and flash onto him, then he dies because Jayce is right on him. So Palafox blows his flash, but Contractz is already behind mid lane coming in. He does a really good job saving his Arctic Assault till he gets past Blaber. He uses the W first, saves his Arctic Assault, gets in for the kill onto Emenes, and CLG already eking out an early gold lead versus the best team in the league.
And that feels really good when you're the ones with the Sion, you're the ones with the Zeri Lulu. As long as Cloud9 is not crushing the early game like they tend to do versus a lot of teams, you've got a good shot as the game moves forward. Blaber, however, starting up the first Drake here nice and early. Chemtech Drake at the beginning, it's not as useful as something like an Ocean, but it could get Cloud9 stacking towards a Soul as a win condition.
Going in for the steal!
Scaling of CLG. Oh my God, he got it! Contractz is just built different this game.
And they're not done yet!
Emenes, seismic shove finds him, throws him right back into the rocks that were waiting, and Dhokla's ready to help it out. One more wallop upside the head. It is CLG's early game.
Yo, what the hell are they feeding CLG this weekend, Flowers? They are on core. This is actually insane. They're going to go 3-0 if they can finish this game off. Getting way ahead of ourselves, but Contractz is just popping off. He ganks top, he ganks mid, he steals the dragon. Wow, that was from over 700 right there. He's able to get it with his W.
He timed it with Blaber's barrel explosion. Oh. He out-blabbered the Blaber.
When your opponent combos smite with your ability, that is very, very painful. Honestly, though, amazing stuff here for Contractz. By the way, I was checking on this, so I was a little bit behind. There was a spectator bug. There was actually a ward in the Dragon Pit there. So it didn't actually show for us, but there was a ward in the Dragon Pit that allowed Contractz to know what time to jump over with the Blast Cone. And just a little classic spectator.
Well, it's a 700 gold lead for the side of CLG. Over for C9, you can see a very large farm advantage here in the bottom lane. This is to be expected considering these lanes have not been the focus.
Whoa,
Poome. Poome, what are we doing, bud?
He's got
What are we doing here? He had to flash, and he still gets taken down. Poome trying to interrupt some backs just ends up going way too ham as Contractz. Speaking of ham, the Piggy Rider has emerged yet again. They want to look for Berserker here. He has no flash. If they can go after the Varus, it's a sure kill, and CLG make it a 1-for-1.
So they make the call. Poome's trying to stop the backs, and they're calling Contractz over from the very beginning. If you look at that mini-map, but he does get chased down with that ghost from Zven and the flash from Berserker with the arrow to finish him off, costing him a death. In the end, it's still worth as they chase down Berserker. Opposite side of the map, though, since your jungler is showing for CLG and they know where the Piggy is, it's an easy pickup there for Cloud9. Blaber, level 6 on Gragas, with flash available, ult available, with Rift Herald in his inventory. Blaber is ready to cash in right now. That Gragas is going to make moves.
And the gold for this game is closer than it should be based on kills alone. The big reason for that is what I was talking about with the bottom lane of the Varus and Ashe having the advantage. Not only were they up all that farm that was about 3 waves worth, now down to only about 2 waves, but Berserker and Zven have claimed 2 turret plates already from the bottom lane of CLG. Those are the only plates on the Rift that have been taken so far, and these guys are keeping Cloud9 very, very close in terms of overall economy with their lane presence.
Yep, absolutely doing a fantastic job down here. Still targetable, though, with flash down for Berserker. Zven retains his, and the level 6 will come in shortly. But as I said, Blaber to me is the guy you're watching right now with Gragas ult available with the Rift Herald. He's got to be looking to make moves, and Zven just hits his level 6. So Ashe Arrow is now available, and I expect some action down here with Ashe Arrow plus that guaranteed initiation. Meanwhile, Contractz has been spotted on the wards towards the upper side of the river. So with this information for Cloud9, they know bottom lane is for sure clear. Tracking Contractz on his entire way down here as he comes to shadow Emenes.
Emenes going to rotate down into that bot side river where Blaber is waiting. So if CLG tries to make a move on the Jayce, Blaber's ready to follow. Blaber goes in, and now CLG wants to turn it around to the big man. However, Blaber's got plans of his own. He tries to fire Palafox right back into the waiting arms of his team. It'll be a 1-for-0 so far, but Emenes makes it even. They lose Palafox, traded for Blaber.
Yeah, I would say, it's too bad CLG got their kill onto the tank, but it's the killer Piggy Flowers. Cloud9 happy that they actually get the kill onto their carry, onto Emenes, onto the Jayce. This Jayce nowadays scales actually really, really well.
Oh, wow. Here comes the Sion train, and Berserker's got no way home. Luger gets the money. And Emenes now having to deal with Contractz again in the mid lane, who's just trying to keep this wave in a decent spot. You are going to see a TP returning Palafox back to the mid lane as Dhokla resets his position into the fountain, spends some of his money. Dhokla has purchased Heartsteel. This is going to give him a major advantage in these trades versus Fudge if they keep going back and forth, and he's back into the top lane with his own TP.
Yeah, I actually love tracking how many stacks they can get off with the Heartsteel after those purchases. It's a pretty early one.
Fudge got his now too.
This is my favorite Sion move. When you have your teleport timing here around the 10-minute mark, you go bottom instead, go for an ult gank, especially when the AD carry does not have their flash. And then you can just teleport back top, make sure you don't lose too many turret plates. Cloud9, though, trying for their second dragon. Last one was stolen away by Contractz. He's really far from stealing away this one, so I think Cloud9 should be able to secure this one unless some truly crazy stuff happens.
Well, Cloud9 has had most neutral objective control so far in this game. You pointed out that the first one was stolen, but it was C9 starting it up. They got this second one now. They also still have the Rift Herald in Blaber's inventory, but it is under 1 minute left on the timer. Blaber needs to drop that somewhere very soon.
Yep. Always going to be looking for the kill play into Rift Herald play to get the maximum out of it. Fudge chasing down Dhokla here for a little bit of an extra trade, and there it is again!
They're going after Berserker. CLG does not stop with these early game gank spams. Contractz is finding value time and again.
He is a monster this game for CLG, but as you said, Cloud9 still keeping it close despite how successful Contractz has been in this one. And Blaber decides since the piggy is bottom, they're just gonna throw it mid here with the Jayce, guaranteed to get your money off before it expires. Those turret plates will come through. Emenes gets really greedy though, trying to share.
Emenes, oh, the seismic shove hit him. Palafox just slams him.
Flowers, I know you've experienced this too. Those greedy laners trying to share your turret plate money when you activate your Rift Herald for them.
Go away, it's mine.
Exactly, Emenes just gets way too greedy with his position and walks up into the minefield here from Palafox and gets punished by Contractz.
Oh, Fudge now being jumped on by Dhokla, who flashes to the other side to stop Fudge's retreat, but Fudge just continues walking forward. Now he's gonna TP to safety, or is he? Decimating Smash stops it. There is no flash, there is no TP, there is no escape. And bottom side, it's a 3v3 that immediately becomes a 3v2. Blaber is dead, and Contractz is hungry for more.
Contractz is an absolute monster. There's no better way to say it. He is jungle diffing Blaber right now. Crazy stuff. CLG's bottom lane is really benefiting as well. Luger starting to get a lot of money. You are tracking Flowers, the CS difference in the laning prowess of Berserker and Zven.
Yes, sir.
It has been completely disrupted by the jungle difference here coming in from Contractz, and Luger with the extra kills.
Oh, Contractz wants Berserker, forces out the flash. He punished Berserker twice already when the flash was down. As soon as it comes back up, he's ready to go again to make sure Berserker is playing this whole game without that summoner spell. Nice interrupt there on the backs from Berserker.
Yeah, at least you can get the little tilt play in there, even if you're getting spam ganked. Do what you can, stop the recalls. Actually does matter on that wave because that is not a cannon wave. So very high value there for Berserker trying to stop them. Luger sticks around because of it. If it was a cannon wave, you know, maybe you try and redo it. But Luger's going to stick around, picks up the rest of the CS, no problem.
Luger, Contractz, everybody on CLG is feeling great about how things look right now. Plus 2,500 gold lead, 14.5 minutes into the game over Cloud9. With the Zeri, with the Sion, with this incredible scaling potential. Palafox also 2-1-3 here on the Taliyah, mostly stacked on his tier, has more stacks than the Jayce does because of the spammable nature of his abilities. It means that Seraph's Embrace could come online pretty swiftly as well. But C9, with the control they had throughout the laning phase here in the bottom side, they're gonna take that first turret, and it's Berserker getting solo turret gold.
Yeah, look at this freaking jungle here, Flowers. Which team's jungle is this?
It's Cloud9's now.
Is this red team jungle? Is that blue team jungle? That is Cloud9 territory.
Yes, sir.
And that's why it was a very good job. Luger was able to get his recall off in the fog of war, escapes on the known weak side for CLG. And those types of plays come from good communication, knowing you have to sacrifice this area. Hey, Cloud9, they've got Emenes roaming down through the jungle invade as well. And Cloud9 are able to take that. What really we need to keep track of, though, is setting up for the next dragon, because CLG are at a point now where they don't have to give up these setups on the dragon anymore. They have such a substantial gold lead for themselves. They have mid push as well. They shouldn't be letting Cloud9 by default like they did on the first two dragons get the early positioning and be able to utilize their poke composition. Cloud9, they have a lot invested in poke picks here. The Varus, the Jayce, even Gragas and Cho'Gath kind of poke with Rupture and barrels.
Ooh. Went fishing there, but Zven does not land the arrow. Poome just casually sidestepping away from it. So let me ask you this then. What do you want to see CLG do next in order to keep this lead snowballing against Cloud9?
Well, I would have said rotate down towards bottom, but currently they're investing a lot clearing out and making top dangerous.
Oh, Poome just gets one shot before the rest of CLG can do anything about it. Blaber gets out of the way of the seismic shove, but now he can't escape, and Luger guns him down. TP to reinforce CLG, make sure Cloud9 can't get a punish back. It ends up being a 1-for-1. They get Blaber's flash. They trade their support for a jungler. It's a CLG positive trade.
Yeah, because of the Taliyah wall and Luger's ability on Zeri to jump the wall, he's able to combine for the kill onto the enemy jungler. Flowers, you will take that trade
All the time.
every day of the year because there's an objective on the field. Blaber will be back up in time before the fight actually breaks out, and Luger does have double summoner spells as well. But Fudge, with the Cho'Gath ultimate, is going to be better than a jungler right now anyway.
Right.
As I say that,
Well, actually, no,
Contractz
they do have it
has been
evolved.
able to steal.
Yeah, they do have it. The smite's evolved all the way up to 1200 too. So it's going to be a pretty close contest after all. There it is, feasted down by Fudge. Contractz not successful at stealing that one away. Still a 3,000 gold lead for CLG. Still 1 Drake compared to 2. So Cloud9 not being able to secure Soul Point because of Contractz' earlier steal. Very important as we go forward into the mid game now. 17.5 minutes in. Dhokla just using the ulti to retreat away from Blaber up there in the top side in case he was going to get reinforced, as Cloud9 uses both their AD carry and mid laner to keep that mid lane tier 1 turret alive. Only 1 turret taken by either team. Palafox applying some pressure down here in bottom lane. Wants to just try to poke at Fudge, who is only a wall of health. So Taliyah's damage is still going to be pretty effective.
Yeah, and I want to say that his Cho'Gath ultimate right now does 1421 true damage to monsters. So unless Contractz is able to pull some crazy mind games there.
Okay, it's still stronger. All right.
It is still stronger. I just want to always, defend junglers if they lose smite fights.
That's fair. I didn't actually know exactly what the thresholds on Feast were, but now I do, as Fudge gets dove, but CLG don't find the success. Going in after Cho'Gath is not normally the play. The flash that comes out from Contractz to guarantee Blaber doesn't get the cask angle means nobody dies from either side off of that dive.
Yeah, actually, not done yet.
Have I cursed myself? I believe I may have. Palafox gets back with the flash, and now Contractz wants to come in too. Emenes tried to go after Palafox there. It was flash for both mid laners expended, but again, still no kills.
Still no kills. Everyone's calling ambulances for nobody. Nobody's going back to base. Sion actually got the push out on top side too, so CLG with a little bit of extra timer here. They're getting double recalls off for their bottom lane. We just had Phantom Dancer completed on Luger. The Zeri here now at the 2-item power spike, and that is where CLG invested so much of Contract's time. Even though he was everywhere on the map, he affected all lanes. He got kills in every single lane. He's gonna get the extra bonus there. He invested most of his time into Luger, and now it's Luger's time to pay him back. The Deathless Zeri caught up in CS because of all the extra pressure. Now at 2-item power spike. Now congregating around mid.
And speaking of item power spike,
Contractz is really deep.
Contractz very far deep. Arctic Assault might be able to get him away from this. They want to try to block him. Contractz still trying to stand and fight. They can't just focus Sejuani. He's very tanky. Contractz still trying to fall back. But now Cloud9 has fallen in. They're still looking for some of these low health bars as Dhokla goes after Zven. And Emenes will now be the target for CLG. Luger needs a little bit more damage. He won't quite get it. Luger has to flash back not to die as Dhokla is flung underneath the turret. C9 defends and CLG retreats.
And Flowers! No one died again! They're all unkillable Demon Kings in the LCS. Nobody goes down. That was a crazy sequence. Multiple flashes blown. The Gragas cast from Blaber there does get Dhoklas as well, so some frontliners in addition to Luger losing their flashes. Luger really wanted that kill on the Emenes. He got all the way to tower range, dangerously far on the chase, but nobody going down. Contractz there sidestepped the Varus ultimate as well. Could have been even worse for CLG. Here's the turnaround while they're trying to work through the tanks. With the Sejuani ult onto Fudge as well, allowed the backline to play a little bit more aggressively, but then Luger tries to chase Emenes all the way in. He wants one more Q just out of range to get that last one. And since he was in tower range, get hit with a knockup, has to flash that afterwards. Then the Gragas ultimate from Blaber gets Dhokla's flash as well.
And the thing I was going to mention before we got into the fight, Warmogs on Contractz, very common first item purchase on Sejuani, but I really like it this game because there's so much poke between AP Gragas barrels, shock blasts, all these things. Palafox trying to kite out Emenes. Remember, neither one of the mid laners has their flash anymore. It was spent before. Contractz ends up blocking the arrow, and Palafox gets a killing spree. Emenes, another death as Luger jumps over the wall, finds one bullet on Zven. Contractz is ready to keep on chasing, but Blaber wants to protect that support. Now Contractz will take a little bit more damage on the exit, but he's in no real danger.
I just want to call out that seismic shove from Palafox. Pretty heads up on Emenes. Able to save his own life. on the Jayce. It can be really difficult to hit those when you're playing against a Jayce that does have Eclipse because he gets the extra move speed bonus.
Right.
Nicely done there for evasive maneuvers, and Contractz was able to protect him. He finds another kill on Zven.
Ooh, and they give it to Luger, too. Absolutely perfect there for CLG, as now they're looking towards the mid lane. Remember that Contractz has no ulti. It was used earlier on Zven, so they can't just go for one of those picks here. Now they're going to go down towards the Drake. They don't want to allow Cloud9 to have soul point. There's still 15 seconds before Zven is back alive. They have a 5v4.
They for sure should have this. Unless the Varus ult or Varus Q comes through from Berserker, it looks like he's still in mid lane, so he's not going to get in any sort of range here. Contractz should be able to secure it, no problem. And CLG Flowers. It is actually hilarious how often this team plays into the counter logic meme. You know, last weekend, with the games that people are expecting them to win, they drop, and then super weak with one of the toughest schedules. Never mind here, though. Palafox is going to have to get out of there, buy some time for the rest of CLG to get there. Poome comes in, he flash ults!
Poome ready to engage onto Blaber as Blaber walks back into Luger. Now Emenes looks for Palafox, but all he's going to find is another gray screen. Luger ain't afraid of Blaber. He goes unstoppable. C9 tried to make a move, and CLG hit him right in the mouth.
There we go. CLG aren't done either. After that hit, they're going to go for Baron 2. Teleport comes up here from Fudge. The Cho'Gath has flash, and the Cho'Gath has ultimate. You have to keep him out of the pit more than you have to keep out an enemy jungler.
Yeah, they really got to be careful about Fudge being able to eat this away. 3,600 HP left of the Baron. Contractz goes in. They just want to find another kill instead. Berserker still firing, but with Zven taken out, CLG are now retreating. The risk of giving the Baron away, that is one of the very few conditions CLG has to completely toss their lead, and they're not willing to go for that risk.
Yeah, and it's all because of Fudge with his flash. Palafox over the wall.
Oh, Contractz jumps in there, but unfortunately, everybody else isn't ready to follow up, so they can't make any kind of a play. But CLG are almost 6,000 gold ahead of the #1 team on a 7-game win streak, Kobe.
They certainly are, Flowers. Don't start believing too hard, or else
Right, yeah, I'm just stating facts. I am merely observing something.
Stating facts, baby. Spitting facts. And honestly, Poome goes here for the Flash Lulu ultimate. Buys him enough time for Palafox to get the ultimate himself off. Draws the wall. They pick up the 2 kills onto Emenes, onto Blaber. It's just CLG chasing Cloud9 around the Rift now. And with Cloud9's composition, it's very difficult for them to get back into this game, except exactly like you said, if they flip an objective. And guess what? It's a lopsided flip, because Cho'Gath now, his ultimate does 1465. So if he flashes in there, he's going to have time. There's a small animation with it, but it is very, very, very quick. And single-handedly, they do deny the Baron, but they still increase the goal lead here for CLG. And with their double dragons, they can just now focus on getting down the last of the outer turrets. Everybody trying to pin down mid.
So I think the math of it works like this. Most abilities in League have a 0.25 second cast time. Palafox runs in there looking for Zven. Not going to find the shove, so Zven stays alive, but he still flashes to get away. Cask over the wall only knocks Dhokla into C9, but he still might die here under a little bit of threat, so has to use the ulti to disengage it. Luger just firing off a couple of bullets, providing cover for the exit. Accelerated Shock Blast hits Poome. CLG continuing to disengage. Getting the flash out of Zven, very important for upcoming fights, because support Ashe will not survive any sort of an engage if she gets caught.
Yeah, we've seen the dangerous scenarios he's gotten himself into. Does have the Ghost to try and rely on, but that is about it. And CLG, with them sticking to this much more standard draft than you're used to seeing from them. Emenes, very dangerous territory.
Walked up there, but didn't get punished. The seismic shove doesn't catch him out. However, Cloud9 is just death-balling this down mid. They really want the tier 1 turret, but Berserker's gonna get found by seismic shove. That's a bit of a problem. Zap hits him too. The immortal shield bow procs, the shield keeping him a little bit more healthy, but C9 will not just strong-arm this turret away. Palafox again with a seismic shove, and Emenes with his 6th death of the game.
Flowers, that was 4v5 too. CLG just beat them 4v5 in a team fight at the tower. Dhokla was not there on the Sion. It is these seismic shoves from Palafox, constant picks from the CLG mid laner. They are on fire. Honestly, they're going to try and start it up again. Fudge still has flash on the Cho'Gath. He's not level 16 yet.
Dhokla's going to try to provide a wall here for the rest of everybody. Fudge is a valuable target, as is Blaber. They can both potentially steal the objective away, and Contractz doesn't want to let him. Blaber's going to get locked down. Wild growth coming out of Poome to make sure they don't lose their own jungler. Fudge is thrown back into the team. He tries to eat Luger, but he's on a diet, and Contractz goes unstoppable. This is Sejuani Gaming, and this is CLG. Emenes comes back into the fight with a TP, but he's not going to get a whole lot of anything. Dhokla's big old Sion stands in the way, and it makes it hard to hit those shock blasts.
Yeah, Emenes comes back out and hits a little bit of poke onto Palafox, but that's just a scratch compared to what Palafox has done to them. He's over a ward, though. Palafox on vision. He could get bursted.
Palafox in some potential danger here, but Zven, what are you doing, man? He's already gone. Palafox finally picked off by Emenes. He gets his man, but can he get away? Poome, Dhokla, Luger, everybody else from CLG chasing after this Jayce. It's not even a bad chase because they're going to be right by the objective they want afterwards. Emenes all the way into the bottom lane. Cloud9 using the next teleport there, this time from Fudge, to get down and make sure he's all right. But it's CLG onto the Drake. It's CLG who want to secure Soul Point here.
Yep, and they're going to do it. My goodness. You're right, Contractz is everywhere. Everywhere this game, unkilled on the Sejuani 509, absolute masterclass. Stole the first dragon as well to get them to this Dragon Soul Point right now.
Yeah.
And Cloud9, their composition is not built for really big comebacks like this. Unless you get some crazy Ashe Arrow, Varus ultimate, Gragas ultimate combination, it's really hard to fight your way back in when CLG has such a massive gold lead, and they've got the security of team fighting with a Zeri Lulu. And when Palafox is playing like this, seismic shove looking like a point and click flowers.
Yeah, man.
Literally everybody on CLG just looking for opportunities to try and set Palafox up for some seismic shoves. He even hits some himself without any setup. He just constantly chucking Cloud9 members back into their team, getting more and more picks for themselves. And CLG look like they will not be stopped here in their march towards playoffs.
Poome getting hit with the arrow. Blaber sidesteps away from the counter engage of the Sejuani. Instacurse. C9 are really happy with that. Now they have a 5v4. They're the ones with the double smite secure with that Cho'Gath ulti, and now they're the ones with control over the topside river. Dhokla taking some damage from Emenes, who now wants to fall back, regroup with the rest of the team. Contractz, Palafox, and Luger. It's the front line together with the damage. Fudge wants to lead the way here. Got to be careful not to take too much pain of his own. Loses about 2,000 HP on the Cho'Gath. Remember, Sejuani can heal this off. She's got the Warmogs. It's not that big of a deal. Cho'Gath, however, that's going to be hurting for a little while.
Yeah, they're going to be hurting for quite a bit longer, it looks like, as CLG can rotate over towards bottom side too. There's another minion wave there. Send Palafox over. Luger's got cleanse.
Very important that he did, because he was 100% dead if he did not.
Yeah, definitely a good summoner spell to burn here for Cloud9. Again, big difficulties in dealing with this Zeri in the team fight with two frontliners, and so.
But the big thing is, there's also Mikhail's on Poome's Lulu, so even if the cleanse is gone, they still have another get out of jail free card, and Emenes goes right back into black and white screen jail himself.
Palafaker with the flash over the wall to be able to follow up on Contractz with the seismic shove, finds the kill on Emenes again, and now they're actually going to start the Baron. Are they going to look for another turn here? Fudge is in the area.
They also have Palafox ready to ride the Weaver's wall in and try to catch these guys out. There it goes. Palafox throws out the wall, and Blaber's already killed. Fudge is going to go down next. 2 smites don't matter. They'll kill them both. And CLG makes their move. They're going right back into the Baron now, and this time they won't be denied.
This is beautiful gameplay from CLG. Snowballing so smoothly from the early game. Massive jungle difference from Contractz. They never let a Baron flip go through. They do not chance it with a Cho'Gath, with a Gragas. They turn every time, Flowers. Go for the pick, immediately getting them. And then after killing both possibilities of a steal, they finally pulled the trigger. Here's a look at it. Contractz, he's so beefy right now, he doesn't care. Taking the ward in front of Emenes' face, it tilts Emenes, it pisses him off, and then allows Contractz to start fully stack up his stun. Palafox in the area to be able to flash over the wall and follow up on it. That's the first pick. And then Flowers, you know, this whole time, they're never looking to flip. They're looking to turn right back around on Cloud9. They see Fudge, they see Blaber. Contractz he actually failed his Q over the wall on Sejuani, but doesn't matter, nobody saw that because everyone was looking at Palafox.
Yep.
Drew the wall, splitting up Cloud9. Front line here on the other side, they could not get out, and CLG will be wearing purple. 1 minute left on the Dragon Soul, so I don't think they go for a dive or anything, but it's so easy to just push up mid as well as bottom and then retreat back to your Dragon Soul.
I really got to applaud the patience of CLG in this game, making sure they never opened up the opportunity for C9 to use the Blaber and Cho'Gath ulti combo to try to steal away the objective and get back in the game. They finally find the moment where they can secure it safely. They finally scale this wall they've been having to deal with the whole time as Emenes and Palafox are in a 1v1 back on the other side of the map. Palafox holds him off, force Emenes' retreat, while the remainder of CLG making a 4-man play here in mid. Blaber just blink and you miss it, he's gone. And CLG now looking for their first Tier 3 tournament of the game. C9 nowhere in position to defend. CLG should just be able to force this one down. There it goes. Turret destroyed by Luger. Inhibitor's your next target. Contractz already used the ulti for the pick onto Blaber, so they don't have that C9 has to worry about. But now they've got another minion wave ready to go. They're layering these beautifully. Emenes going to be caught out by the Weaver's wall. He wants to go in and get Palafox. Emenes turns it around beautifully, but can CLG do anything back? Poome has to flash away from the rupture as Luger retreats as well. Emenes did a real good job right there, but a teleport's coming in, and C9 aren't done. This is what you were talking about, Kobe. This is the worry. If they end up having to throw in the enemy base, now there might be a problem with the soul. Luger's gonna find him an Contractz Arctic Assault flash. Enemy Jayce is down. Huge for CLG. Fudge in the front line. Contractz doing the same. AD carries ready to battle, but it's Contractz eating a whole lot of damage way too fast. Oh, the Luger flashes, and he gets the kill. It's C9 stopping the soul and holding the line.
And they're gonna get an objective bounty shutdown on top of the kill bounty shutdowns they just got on all these members of CLG. Flowers, this is the best team in the LCS. Cloud9 at the top currently. They will not go down without a fight, no matter how well CLG are playing. Cloud9, and it starts with Emenes. Emenes with the Jayce play on the bottom side. He goes right into Palafox's face. Holy, Cloud9 still fighting here, even after the onslaught from CLG is inside their base. Baron empowered. Palafox goes really deep onto Emenes, so Emenes knows there's only one way out of this, and it's through your face. He goes, he flashes on Palafox, he gets the kill, he gets his way out too, cutting back to the rest of the team who were left in a numbers advantage for Cloud9 on the other side of the Weaver's wall. And so Cloud9 pick up kills on both sides of that wall. Then Emenes gets thinks he's a little bit too hype here, as he's still got to deal with Luger, a fed Zeri, and Contractz flashes on him. His death, though, is not in vain. It's actually very much worth it to get this massive kill bounty on Contractz. That pig has so much gold inside of it. Loot Pinata right there. Berserker is the one to get it as well, so worthy sacrifice there from Emenes after a massive play at the inhibitor. Gets Berserker a bunch of money too in Cloud9. The hope has been revived.
3 Drakes for both sides. Once again, showing how important that early steal from Contractz was. Ocean Soul could make this game look pretty different if C9 had it right now. Emenes does not get caught by Contractz ulti. That would have been big if they pick him off there. But C9 are still weathering the storm. Now Dhokla engages. He finds 2. Decimating Smash looks for more. But Emenes is keeping Luger out of the fight. Dokla's tanking, and Luger can't do any damage during it because of the pressure from Jayce. So C9 will again dig in their heels and defend against a CLG that's been ahead the whole game.
Yeah, I think that fight was too split for CLG. They've been at their best when Palafox is right up behind the front line so that they can fish for those seismic shove on the front line to be able to shove a Cloud9 member further away from the rest and be able to pick off kills that way. But because they tried to attack from 2 angles, they weren't able to get that, and they had to back out here. Good defense from Cloud9 to be able to stop the onslaught here from CLG, and Cloud9 clawing their way right back into it. The items are getting so much closer. It's not just the dragons here, but item completion's going a long way too. Finally, Blaber gets his 3rd here for the Zhonyas. That means Gragas can actually go in for a huge montage play, have the Zhonyas to be able to save and get back out afterwards. Not level 16 yet, so there's a little bit of a ways to go to catch up to this monster that is Contractz.
Oh, they find Emenes this time. Contractz ulti hits, and the enemy Jayce is down. CLG seeing if they can keep on chasing, and Dhokla says, no problem, boys, let's go in. Seismic Shove throws the frontliners into the waiting arms of CLG, but it's still Berserker they gotta keep their eyes on. Luger jumps over the wall, pops the cleanse, and keeps the chase going. Zven, Berserker, Fudge, and Blaber all still trying to get away, but another Seismic Shove from Palafox takes down the frontliner in Fudge. CLG 4v3, looking to end the game and upset C9 right now. They push the minion wave up. Remember, they do not have Barons, so these minions can be cleared out pretty effectively. Contractz goes in, Berserker cutting off to the side. Palafox and Luger are the damage. First Nexus turret already gone. Blaber has to retreat, flash used for it. Berserker's now the target. Kill the Varus, win the game. CLG just did what nobody thought they'd do. They end the win streak, they take down the #1 team, and they send the rest of the day into total chaos. Blaber dies again just to pad the stats, and Emenes dies for the 10th time. CLG take down C9.
3-0 super week for Counter Logic Gaming. They end Cloud9's 7-game win streak at the same time as starting their own 3-game win streak to run into playoffs.
The day just got a whole lot more interesting.
CLG, monster performance, perhaps their best performance of the entire split on the last day of the split.
And it was the man in the middle right there, Contractz, who made all of it happen. He ganked top, he ganked mid, he ganked bot, he ganked bot, he ganked mid, he ganked bot, he ganked bot, he stole track, he did everything. This dude put on an absolute clinic on how you play Sejuani.
I love it, Flowers. You know, the Elise was up as well. The Elise that they had just effectively used, but they knew going here against Cloud9, put Contractz on that Sejuani again, on that front line, and he still gets as much or more early game action with the Sejuani, ganking all 3 lanes, the completionist. But I have to say as well, it was a long game. It wasn't just over after the successful jungle difference. It took big performances from every member of CLG there too. Palafox must have had an 80-90+% hit rate on seismic shoves on Cloud9 members, constantly getting them back into kill range for their team, and that moves CLG up into 4th place. They end with 10. They are in playoffs. CLG faithful can breathe a sigh of relief. They're in.
What a game from CLG. You talked about how it wasn't a fast game. A big reason for that was the presence of the Cho'Gath, the ability to threaten that Baron steal to a greater severity than most normal games would have you be concerned about. But I love their patience. Again, that's the thing I'm praising the most. After Contractz' individual play, not throwing the damn game for no reason. So many times we see those plays. CLG didn't fall into the pitfall, and it was awesome to watch. With that game done, Viva la LCS! LCS in Espanol is the official Spanish language stream of the LCS. This new viewing experience will be available live on LLA's Twitch and YouTube channels starting next week for playoffs. Go scan the QR code or go to lolesports.com to learn more. And now we're joining Emily and the hero of the day, Contractz, on stage for the Verizon post-game interview.
Thank you. I am joined by Contractz. After that game, it could only be you. Thank you so much for joining me. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So I do want to take you through your early path because I did think it was really interesting. I thought your early game was very interesting. So essentially, you ended up going birds to Krugs to red. You were spotted out by Ashe mid, and then you pathed all the way up for a gank. What was your early game plan? Was that like Dhokla calling for that, or you were just like, oh, I see an opportunity, I was already spotted out? What was going through your mind?
Generally in tank versus tank matchups, I feel like junglers don't expect to really pressure up there. You know, it's kind of just farming the whole game, but those matchups can be pretty volatile early in the lane. So, I mean, I know this back from even like 2017 when I played with Impact. He would always be like, yeah, top, just come top. It's a free kill every single time at 3 minutes. So, I mean, it still holds true to this day.
All right. Going into this matchup, you guys obviously were looking to clinch a playoff spot. You have now with this win. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Second of all, going through this entire split, you guys have obviously had a lot of ups and downs as a team. As a team that actually did stick together and kind of talking to you guys, you're like, yeah, you know, we still fight, but that's a good thing because it allows us to push past. What has it been like, and what do you think you've improved on the most?
Honestly, it's been a really weird split. We've had really high highs and really low lows. Like, I think I've had, you know, this game I went 7-1. I've had games where I've went 0-7, right? So, I mean, just kind of finding that balance of like consistency is still pretty important for us. Like making sure we're, you know, really pushing towards, you know, the goals that we want, which is, you know, making it to finals and potentially MSI. I think we have a good chance at it. I think everyone was a lot harder on themselves this week, you know, calling each other out. And I think that's what we were really lacking for a lot of our weeks this split. So, I mean, it's been fun. I love playing with all the guys. It's enjoyable.
Nice. And then the last time I talked to Palafox, I actually asked, like, what kind of team do you think you guys are? Because you have played, I mean, obviously this game you got super early first blood top, but you've played a lot more, or less chaotic slightly in the early game. What kind of style do you think CLG has right now, or are you still trying to find it?
Man, I don't know. I just, people need to stop letting me have Sejuani. Like, I really don't want to play this champ anymore. I swear, like, every single game I get it, I just win on it. So
nice.
I'm just revolutionized my own style. I'm not a carry player anymore. I'm just a tank player. I think we do play chaotic. I think we're pretty messy at times. They won't be the cleanest games, but you know, they'll be really fun to watch.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me. And we will send it back to the LCS Lounge.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Emily. We have our first fold.
I pre-folded.
You pre-folded.
Sadly, I pre-folded too.
This is crazy because this opens us up to the 5-game tiebreaker day, potentially.
And it's not that crazy. So we get 5 tiebreaker games if FlyQuest beats TSM, if TL beats EG, which is the unlikeliest of them, if Golden Guardians beats Dig, and 100 Thieves beats Immortals, then we'd have 5 tiebreakers.
Wow, that's crazy.
I'm sweating.
And the way that this happened was thanks to none other than Contractz, who was an absolute beast. We just heard from him there, but he was the entire reason it felt like this CLG got off to the early game.
Yeah, Emily talked about it right from the start. Like the fact that he basically went red side, ganked top early, then went mid, had the bot lane gank. It was actually just, he was terrorizing the map, and it felt like C9 was trying their hardest to kind of deal with it, and it was making it worse.
Ganks all 3 lanes and steals an objective and isn't down in CS. He was down like 7 CS at like 12 minutes into the game.
This one broke me.
Just gets that smite in there. God, affects all 3 lanes and steals a neutral objective. Incredible performance, delivers the win, the Grubhub dub. Don't miss any of the action this weekend and order a Grubhub today to have your favorite meals delivered right to your door. You can get $5 off your delivery order of $20 or more with code SUPERLCS through March 20th. Terms apply. The other really big deal with this win is it creates a situation where even if TSM wins the next game, they pull up the upset against FlyQuest. The fate of their future playoffs is not entirely in their hands.
Correct. If TSM wins, but then Dignitas beats Golden Guardians, they would be tied for 6 with Golden Guardians, but would be 0-2 against them and lose the tiebreaker. So we'll continue to talk about all the foldy sheet stuff as the day goes on.
Yeah, we'll keep you guys updated, but for now we're gonna go to break. Like we said, FlyQuest TSM is next.
Red Bull gives you wings. Who said you can't teach an old dog new tricks?